Well, good morning everyone and welcome to the show. For those of you that caught part 1 of this, you might have noticed that, well, we've done this video before. Sorry. So now you're getting the extended cut version of it, and this is part 2. I forgot to click that I had already edited it. It's a longer version of it, so hey, bonus. Well, enjoy this bonus re-edit of the Chevy pickup. Now they don't make a cool mount like they do for the front. Fortunately, we've already made a template for these in the past. Went ahead and lasered off too. Let me show you how this works. Speaker will go into place here. It'll pop back into place. Now it sits nice and flush. That 1/8 inch is all we need. We have 4 screw holes. We can just screw it into place. Before we do that, of course, we will put some foam on it and, you know, wire it up. Mounted in place, all nice and level, very rigid in the door. For a 4x6, you couldn't find a nicer mount. Put the door back together in reverse order and move on to the next one. With all the speakers back in the car, we want to run a second tone check to make sure that it isn't something other than just bad speakers. I mean, let's be honest, those speakers are pretty bad. There could be a bad wire somewhere between, let's say, the radio and the speaker. This would be the easiest way to test for that. Driver's door, driver's rear, front, passenger rear. All right, all the speakers make noise. That's a positive thing. That means we have no breaks in the wire or anything like that. We can move on to getting the radio in the dash and getting this on out to the customer. But before we do that, let's go over to the bench and we'll talk about what we're doing for the radio and all the little pieces and things and how it all goes together. One other thing before we head over there, we had talked about the USB and drilling a hole. This is where that is going to be. We're going to pop this out, drill our hole here, and our USB will be located in that spot or this spot here. One of these. You like that one?
Yeah, it does.
Fernando says it's going to be in this one here. Let's go over to the bench. Dash kits are always a fun thing to do. If you like models, well, you're gonna like dash kits, because dash kits, well, they're like models. They have a lot of pieces and a lot of parts. Unlike models though, some of these parts just have to go. And on this kit, these 4 little screw holes on the outside are the first thing to get cut off. Now, how we know that is 2 things. 1, we've done hundreds of these. And 2, if you go into the instruction manual here, pick the vehicle that you're doing, it will tell you which parts you need to remove. To remove these parts, I like to use a flush cutter. If you don't remove the parts that they recommend you move, what may happen is when you go to put the dash panel back on, it may not sit properly. And in the case of this, these would get in the way of the dash properly snapping in. On the sides here, we have a back piece here, 2 far sides here, this funky thing at an angle right here, and then this 1 screw provision right there. We took the dash out, we only took 1 screw out, and it was close to the front of the radio. We turn to the appropriate page that has the instructions. It'll tell us to remove all those oddball pieces and just leave the 1 little piece remaining. To remove those, I like to use some duckbill pliers, give it a slight bend, and they'll pop right off. Repeat the process on the other side. On this side, there was 2 screws, and the one here towards the front has the 2 screws. There is this one little thing right here that needs to be removed. Flush cutters, bye-bye. This kit, I do like the way it snaps together. It has an audible click. Line it up. This is one of the nicest kits as far as snapping goes. Yeah, good job, guys. This goes 2 screws towards the driver's side, 1 screw towards the passenger side. Slide it into place. Screw it in using a regular screwdriver. I can't stress this enough. There's no reason to use a drill putting this in. This is it. This is done. This guy's all set and ready to go into the dash. We'll set it aside until the very end. Now, one of those little annoying things that just like falls between the cracks all the time is the antenna adapter. And once I unbag it, safe money is to go plug it into the car, unless it's a form of an amplified antenna that has a power wire that's going to get attached into the harness. This one is not. Either plug it into the back of the radio like this, or take it into the car and plug it in. Now, looking at the smart harness, you have a red wire that comes off. This is going to be the accessory wire. This accessory wire, according to these instructions, has a 10 amp output. That is important anytime you're doing any form of smart module, is to check that red wire output. Some of these have like 2 amps, 3 amps, which isn't enough to do anything other than turn on the radio. You'd have to add a relay to this in order to add a backup camera or turn on anything else that requires accessory. In this case, We're only doing a radio and it's 10 amps, which is more than enough for what we're doing. Coming into the smart harness is a pink wire. That's the data wire. Coming also into it is the black ground and the yellow constant 12 volts. This one is a base model. It doesn't do anything other than create this one thing. Also on the plug we have our 4 speaker wires. We were testing those speaker wires and I had said if you already have a factory harness, we could have easily plugged this in and used this to tone those speakers. If you do that, just make sure that your yellow constant 12 volts is taped off and secure, because if it touches the black ground, bad things will happen and you don't want that. As far as the other wire colors go, they are listed right here, and most of these smart harnesses are going to have a diagram as far as what each color is for. For those of you that aren't into the cool reading thing, you have 4 sets of speaker wires, a solid and a stripe. Stripe is negative, solid is positive. White is drivers, gray is passengers, green is driver's rear, purple is passenger rear. Orange wires are going to be for illumination. Blue wire, solid, is going to be for power antenna. Blue wire with a stripe is going to be for a power antenna or an amplifier turn on. In this case, we have all of those except for the blue with a white stripe. If you're curious as far as what wires are which and whether you need to hook them up, the best way to do that is to plug this into the vehicle and see if there's something on the other side. If there is, more than likely it is going to need to be hooked up. In this case, we have a Pioneer that uses standard wire colorings, meaning they match these wires. Connect the two together, color for color, and you'll be all set and ready to go. Put the harness all together, the USB mounted in place, the Bluetooth mic is up by the mirror. It's time to plug everything in and take a listen to it. Plug into a GM. One of the other features that's provided by all the modules is the door, headlight, seatbelt chime, that ding, 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 ding. It's not gonna be in the speakers anymore, it's gonna move to the module. There it is. Some of the modules give the ability to turn it up or turn it down. Some of them, depending on the manufacturer, some of them actually do a really good job. They have like an outboard speaker that mounts up underneath the dash and sounds a lot like the factory. I know, right? There's lots of different things you can get as far as that goes. When plugging into the back of your radio, start with the longest wires first and move in towards the shortest. In this case, the shortest is that antenna. Even with the 6-inch extension on it, it is still pretty short. Putting a radio in the dash, you kind of have to like do this like pull up and tuck and push, and that's why our wiring harnesses are so tight, so we can minimize the amount of bulk that is behind the radio. I can't tell you how many times we'll pull these radios out of the dash and it'll look like somebody just vomited wiring out. Ours, we don't do that. We want it, you know, there's a lot going on behind there. You want it to be as neat as possible. Replace the 3 screws holding it. Once we get those in, we're not going to put the trim bezel on yet. What we need to do is a polarity test. Because we replace speakers in this car, we need to make sure that we got all 4 of them correct. Nothing sucks worse than getting one wrong. For those of you that don't know what a polarity test is, a polarity test is a device that has a microphone in the tip of it. We're going to play a pop, and what that pop is going to do is move the speaker in one direction. We want to measure that and physically see it. If one speaker is moving backwards to all the other speakers, then we could have a serious issue. We'll get diminished bass and things just won't sound right. Sometimes it causes wooziness because, you know, it's like, oh, something's weird. And then it's telling us positive, positive, negative. Process on the rear door. Lucky for us, we got them all right. If we had gotten one wrong, take the one out that you got wrong and you flip the wiring, the positive and negatives backwards. It can happen, especially on a bigger system where there's a lot of connections. At this case, there's just 2 connection points, one here behind the radio at the harness we just made, and then one at the speaker itself. If you're doing a bigger system with amplifiers, you have at the amplifier, at the speaker. If you're doing high level, it could be there. If you're doing a DSP high level, so there's many places it can go wrong. I strongly recommend always testing. Now that beeping was Fernando setting everything up, getting the colors right, the clock right. These are all things you want to do before you deliver the radio. Nothing sucks worse than having the wrong time and the wrong color. The last thing we want to do before we put the dash on is make sure that the microphone is working and that it's coming out of the speakers. This is also a really nice test to do. You don't want to deliver a vehicle and then do some Bluetooth phone calls and they can't hear people talk. CarPlay and Android Auto make this easy because you can just do a simple request for the weather. What's the weather like today?
It's currently clear and 82 degrees in Clearwater.
If you can hear her and she can hear you, then you've done it right and you can move on to getting the dash back on and delivering the car. Or if it's your car, continuing to have a great day and enjoy the joyous sound that you just put in it. But we're going to deliver the car. And at that, there's really not much more for us to talk about here. Fernando, was it fun?
It is fun.
It is fun. But we have to go, so end the show.
On to the next one, guys.
Thank you so much as always. You guys have a wonderful night. We'll see you later next time.
Bye.
Bye.